many students find that history is a very difficult subject. Really? Not at all. But why they feel it is difficult? Only because they think that how to remember the exact year of any particular event or exact date. Really it is very difficult, because in your textbook there are more than 250 different dates or years mentioned, and it is quite difficult to remember everything what is given in the text. And that is why students, they feel that this subject is a very difficult one. It is also difficult to recollect the exact name of any particular person or say king. But what to do? How to study? Is there any particular tact to remember all those years and names? Yes, if your study method is correct, then you will definitely remember that. And whether those facts are really necessary to mention as it is in your board answer, that explanation will also be given to you by Mrs. Surbhi Bhagwat. She is from Bal Shikshan Mandir School, and I am very sure that once you understand what she will explain to you, then your study method will get changed, and you will find that this subject, means history subject, is very simple one. Thank you.
Hello dear students. We are here to speak and discuss and talk about History, Social Science Part 1. This is one of the important subjects in your 10th standard syllabus. What is history? History is the story of man, as the word itself explains. In Marathi we call it itihas. Iti means the whole thing that has happened. Ha, the events in the past, and as is the sequence of it. So children, what is the aim of this textbook? This textbook aims at constructivism and applicational knowledge. As we know, man is a social animal, and so to live in society we need to follow certain rules and regulations. Part 2 of your history covers political science, whereas Part 1 tells you mainly the past 600 years history. It starts with the fall of Constantinople till date. So then, this course book aims at making you a very, very proper citizen of future India to face the competitive world of globalization, to follow democracy in its full sense with vigilant citizen. Let us have a look at the textbook itself. Oh, how colorful and pleasing it is. It looks like a magazine for a while, but it's not a magazine. The cover page has beautiful collage of wonderful photographs. Each photograph is speaking for nothing else but the event itself that is covered in the textbook. Let us open the textbook. Go to the content page. The content covers 4 chapters on history side. Turn the page and you find next 4 chapters of political science. Let's see what each chapter covers. The first chapter is imperialism. The word suggests that imperialism takes into account the rule of a king, an emperor, or a monarch. In the olden days, imperialism took into account the territorial extent of a given land. But in the modern times, the meaning of the word imperialism changed. It took into account nothing else but the economic side of this imperialism. That is, economically, the exploitation of the given land was done, and the ruler became very, very capitalist. Now, why did this all happen? Because the fall of Constantinople compelled the Western European sailors to go for the sea routes. The sailors like Vasco da Gama, Columbus, Amerigo Vespucci, Magellan, all of them undertook the sea voyages. Those sea voyages compelled them to go to different lands in the eastern side of the world mainly, except for Columbus. Last year you studied American War of Independence, isn't it? So we are very well aware about it. This geographical discovery developed into colonization. Yes, initially they were traders and merchants. But this colonization mainly developed in India, China, and Japan. So chapter 1.b covers those three big nations, big imperial countries, which were ruled by several Western European nations. The third chapter speaks about the word imperialism and its development in Africa. Africa was the last continent to undergo this imperialism. Second chapter is covering 20th century. In the 20th century, the important event was World War I to begin with. In the second decade itself, this big World War started. What were the reasons of these world wars? Well, World War I had its own reasons. Imperialism, the economic imperialism, friends, then militarism, then colonization, and so on. This war continued for 4 years. And when it ended, it brought good as well as bad effects along with it. When the war was going on, the Russian Revolution took place. Russia withdrew from the war. But this revolution helped Russia to stand very strongly in the first half of the last century. Russia became an independent nation under the leadership of Lenin and Stalin. It was a very strong nation to face the calamity of the Second World War as well. It so happened that during the Russian Revolution, only the thinking about the League of Nations had already started. War was still going on, friends, but still there were some leaders from different big nations who thought the need to establish an everlasting peace, and therefore they met. League of Nations was established immediately after the First World War ended. What was its structure? What were its organs? What functions each organ did? Who were the leaders who actively took part in it? How did it help the newly formed nations after the World War? And last but not the least, why did it fail? Because within 19 years, another World War started. Chapter number 2.d deals with the dictatorship that came in the heels of World War I. Mussolini's Italy, or Hitler's Germany, or Japan, which underwent militaristic dictatorship, was something which was really very, very surprising. But people had faith in dictatorship. They did not want any delay in their development. Maybe that is why these dictators came to the power. But they pushed the whole world towards another devastating war, and that was World War II. World War II also continued for 6 years, more than the first one, brought more devastating effects, pushed the world in a great destruction of man as well as the estates of the property. It was a huge loss. And when the World War itself was going on, big leaders like Churchill or Roosevelt, Tocqueville, they all thought about establishing peace. And this establishment of peace came into being on 24th of October 1945 in the form of United Nations Organization. Yes, children. Chapter 2.e discusses about the UN, its aims, objectives, structure, the functions of different organs, other supplementary bodies like UNESCO and all. They help, how do they help them, and what are the successes of United Nations Organization? What challenges presently is UNO facing? All this is beautifully covered in chapter 2.e. Chapter 3 takes into account the liberation. Post-World War definitely made it difficult for the imperialistic countries to rule their colonies. Slowly, they decided to withdraw. India underwent the freedom struggle in a very long, extensive manner. This freedom struggle continued till 1947. We have already studied this freedom struggle in Standard 8 history. The whole textbook, more or less, except the first 4 chapters, has told you this history. So friends, I would request you to go back to this textbook, maybe have a survey of it, and then sit down to read this chapter. Indian freedom struggle marks three important phases, right from the establishment of the Indian National Congress. AOU took the lead, and 1885 to 1905 was known as the moderate period. 1905 to 1920 covers the extremist period. 1920 onwards, Gandhian era starts till 47. Gandhian era covers three major satyagrahas, namely the non-cooperation movement, the civil disobedience movement, and also the Quit India movement. 1947, we attained freedom. In the same way, emancipation of China took place. Chapter 3.B covers the liberation of many African countries. Thus, we step into the last chapter, which is the Cold War, another effect of World War II. As you all know, both Russia and America, being superpowers, wished to pull the world in bipolar system. One supporting capitalism, free economy and democracy. The other one supporting communism, socialism and nationalistic economy. This Cold War situation continued till 1990. But how the Russian continent got divided into 9 different nations and the Cold War situation became far, far weak. Reason? The non-alignment movement started by the Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, Abdul Gamal Nasser and Marshal Tito. This created the third pole, and that is why the Cold War situation totally demolished. As we all know, this age is called as the age of science and technology. Yes, dear friends, chapter 4.B covers nothing else but the development of space age, computer age and atomic energy. The last but not the least chapter tells us the real meaning of the word globalization, what are its different implications, what is its nature, what are its effects, good as well as bad. Phew, tired? Yes, after all, it is history of 4 full 100 years. And that is why you may say, so much to study? No, dear friends, half of it you've already studied in your 8th standard. Now, turn the page. Let's go to the content of political science. As the word suggests, political science tells you about how the Indian government works. And that is why it concentrates mainly, the 5th chapter I mean, on democracy, its meaning, and the type of democracies existing in the world and what are its characteristics. Then in our country, there are political parties, as you all know. Why are these political parties required? What is meant by party system? What is its meaning? And what are meant by national and regional parties? And then what qualification to become a national party? Maybe a regional party. So prominent parties, their establishment year, their names, the prominent leaders, their philosophy, all is explained to you because you will be the future voters of this country. And one vote is equal to one value, isn't it? So, well, as the future voters, you are supposed to know all this. 7th chapter covers the democracy and diversity of our country. It is known that India is a country of diversity, it's true. But what is gender and democracy, caste and democracy, or religion and democracy? Because in our country, we know the diversity of religion, caste and gender is observed. So what are the challenges posed to the democracy of our country? This is what is covered. And this has got quite a lot of practical part and an applicational part in your textbook. Chapter 8 covers the challenges to our democracy. Our democracy has 3 main challenges. One is that of personal liberty. Second is of participation. As you all know, many voters don't go to participate in the voting itself, leave aside vigilant citizenship. So then these are the challenges because inequality thrives in our country. Even though the Constitution aims as one of the principles of equality, the challenge of inequality is yet to be dealt with thoroughly. This is how the political science portion completes. Now children, let me try and tell you how to study this. So in the month of June, as the school reopens, I would request you to read the textbook very, very casually. just for understanding, just as a new magazine comes in our hand and how do we go through it, not very, very thoroughly, but trying to understand the content of it. In the same way, we also should try and read the text first time in the month of June. Then, by 15th of June, your school is opening. So then, start devoting your time to learning. Now here, learning for what? For understanding and devoting some time. So prepare a timetable. In a week, at least 2 times you should study this typical subject. My request to you all will be that on the previous day of your history period, if you read the chapter and go prepared to the class, to the school, then maybe you will understand the given chapter far better. Sticking to the timetable meticulously is very necessary. Pick up the pencil at that time and try and underline all the important names of the leaders, dates, the years, the names of the places. Even maybe you will come across a word or a terminology which is not understood thoroughly by you. You might have heard it many a times, but it doesn't mean that you understand it well. So don't feel shy to just take help of dictionary and find out the implications of that typical word. Then try to scrutinize the text. Up till now, by 2 readings, you've come to understand that which areas you previously did not know and which areas you need to know thoroughly. Now start note making. Sounds a bit tedious, but children, if you make your own notes on a postcard size flashcard using different color sketch pens and just writing the key words, not the sentences, because note making, as in English you must have studied, doesn't take into account sentences. It takes into account just the punch words or punch terms. Try to make flashcards of this type. By this time, your teacher must have finished teaching the first chapter as well as the second chapter. Month of July must have got ended. Then please start writing the exercises that are given at the back of each lesson. Now how to begin? I would request to use A4 size paper only, because we all know that the board papers are of A4 size. I would also request you to write it either in notebook or loose papers. But meticulous writing of those exercises is highly necessary, because the type of questions that are given at the back are the same type of questions that we find in the question paper itself. After writing those exercises, maybe you will have doubt. Try and find teachers' free time and ask your doubts as freely as possible. Asking is half learning, it is said, and that is why make use of this right that is given to each student. After this, when you will study for your first unit test, children, try to see that you open the atlas, refer to the geographical situations, the referential names that are there, because some of the names you might be knowing, but geographically where they are located you might not be knowing. So it is highly necessary that you refer to the atlas and read those geographical situations. Now go to the library and see the reference books, maybe encyclopedia, or there are certain interesting books like the famous speeches of the world leaders. Why am I suggesting this? Because if you see the picture of Stalin or Lenin or Tocqueville or Churchill, Mao Zedong, Sun Yat-sen, then possibly these figures will be in front of you when you will write those answers. After that, I would like you to concentrate on political science side. In political science, there are certain definitions and terminologies that have to be learned by heart. You cannot change those terms. You cannot change this sentence construction, because in your paper you have one-line answer, and for that your correctness of the definitions and meanings given therein is very necessary, and that is why learn those definitions by heart. Even in history part, for example, the aims and objectives of League of Nations, UNO, these have to be studied by heart. You can't change it, okay? There will be assignments given by your teachers throughout the year. So keeping a track of those assignments, submitting them on time, getting them corrected is another part of your study. After this, let us talk about the paper pattern. The paper pattern of our social is like this. The written paper, which covers 2 hours, that is 120 minutes, is of 40 marks. And the 10 marks which you write the assignments at school will be directly sent to the board. So now, how to divide those 120 minutes? Let me request you to keep 20 minutes time for checking, and remaining 1 hour maybe you will use for history, and remaining part you will use for the survey of it. Let us go to the questions. Question number 1A. Fill in the blanks by choosing the correct alternative given in the bracket. Here there are 3 gaps given. You are supposed to choose the correct alternative and fill it and underline it. 3 marks, no option. Question 1B. Match the following. There will be A column and B column. A column has 3 entries. B column has 5 entries. You are supposed to make a box, divide it into columns, and write the correct answer in front of the given A column names or events. This covers 3 marks. Question number 2. Answer the following in brief in about 25 to 30 words each. You'll be given 3 questions. You have to choose 2. Each one carries 2 marks. Friends, here the answers are required to be in points only. Question 3. Give reasons in about 25 to 30 words each. 3 questions will be given. You have to write 4 marks, 2 marks for each. Here also you are expected to write point-wise. Question 4. This is a short note question where you have to write 2 short notes of 3 marks each, and you'll be given 3 short notes. You are supposed to choose 2. So total marks of question number 4, 6. Question number 5. Write any 2 of the following in about 60 to 80 words. This is a long short note question covering 4 marks each. Total marks are 8. Thus, friends, we've completed 28 marks of history. Now let us enter the political science part. Question 6. You are expected to write 3 fill in the gaps from the alternatives given in the bracket. Marks 3 are no option. Now, here, question number 7 is answer in 1 sentence each. You are supposed to write this answer in 1 sentence. 3 marks, 3 questions to be attempted, 5 will be given to you. Question number 8. Answer in brief in about 25 to 30 words each. You have to write 2 questions to 2 marks each, so 4 marks, 3 will be given. Question number 9. This is a short note type question to be written in 25 to 30 words covering 2 marks. There will be 2 questions, you have to choose 1. So this is how 12 marks of political science we've answered. Children, it is said practice makes a man perfect. If up till now, till 9th standard, if this subject is a bit apathetically studied, try to study it more sympathetically, and the manner in which I have told you will create interest, confidence, and happiness within you. By the month of November, you'll be ready with thorough study, and you'll be ready to face any exam like prelim or test series papers, because you've started collecting the papers of other schools from unit test itself. So the extra questions that appear in the other school unit tests, you can surely solve them with the help of your school teacher and take his or her guidance and march towards nothing else but success. Children, make history of your scores, and we wish you all the best for your future as well as Standard 10 exam. Thank you.